All right. So today our topic is road communication. So we are going to look at what we mean by road communication. In every aspect of life, there is communication. In our businesses, in our home, before the family life will go on, there should be effective communication. Before your business will grow, there should be effective communication. Before we can be able to avoid road crashes or road accidents, there should be what? Effective communication. So today we are going to look at what we mean by road communication. So let's ask ourselves, what is communication? Communication simply refers to the act of sending a message from the encoder to the decoder and receiving a feedback. Communication is not complete until a feedback is given. So, for us to be able to drive effectively without road crashes or road accident on our road, there should be what? Effective communication. And for this effective communication to come in, let's look at the channels, or the person must be able to eliminate all the barriers of what? Communication. For the communication in our home, in our companies, in our business, on the road, for it to be effective, there must be eliminations of the what? The barriers of communication. And what are some of the barriers of communication on our roads? Language barriers, semantic barriers. Sometimes symbols, pictures are not properly communicated on the road, which also lead to what? Ineffective what? Communication. So, now for us to be able to have effective communication, as I said, effective communication, effective communication, effective communication on the road, we should be able to eliminate all the barriers, all the barriers of effective communication. What are the barriers? Barriers are hindrances or things that make communication not to be effective. And if we as a road users or as a drivers, and we are not able to eliminate all these road barriers of communication, there will always be an accident or road crashes on our road. So today, me, Abukari Tongo Kofi, a lecturer from PECO Driving School, a certified driving instructor. Today, I'm going to take you through effective of what? Road what? Communication. So as I was saying, effective of road communication simply refers to what? Eliminating all the barriers of what? Road communication. And what are some of the barriers of road communication? One, semantic barriers, language barriers, noise. Okay, noise. We talk of what? Wrong postals of what? Symbols or pictures or road signs. These are some of the barriers that we must be able to eliminate on our road to enhance effective what? Road communication. So now let's look at media of communication. How can we communicate on the road effectively? We talk of media of communication on the road. Media of communication on the road. One, we can talk of oral, we can talk of visual, we can talk of written. These are the three media of road communication. If I am going to communicate effectively to my police road users on the road, then I need to use this particular channel or the media to be able to transmit my information to the other road users. And one is oral, is word to word. Visual means pictures, symbols, diagrams. Written means the documented form. So, in driving, we are not interested in the oral communication. In driving, we focus on the visual and the written. And that brings about road signs. And that brings about what? Road signs. So when you look at the visual communication, we are referring to what we call the road signs. And under the road signs, that is where we have the what? The line marking. Under the road communication, we can talk of the visual aspect, we can talk of the road signs, we can talk of the line marking or the lanes marking. They are all under the visual form of what? Road communication. So this morning, we are going to look at the visual form of what? Road communication. That is the road signs. So the road signs was derived from one of the media of communication, which is the visual form. That is means the visual form means what? Pictures, symbols, diagrams that we use to communicate to our road users what is expected of them to do and what is not expected of them to do. So that is what we mean by the road signs. Now we are going to look at types of road signs or types of visual communication on the road, which we can talk of what? The road signs and the road marking, the line marking, and so on. So this morning we are going to look at the types of road signs. The road signs can be put into three categories. The road signs can be put into three categories. That is the visual form of what? Road communication can be put into what? Three categories. One is the warning sign. Two is regulatory sign. Three is informatory sign. The whole universe is based on these road signs. Even today, if we want to introduce a new road sign, that particular new road signs will be placed on these three basic types of road signs. The warning sign pre-informs us the dangers ahead of us. So when the warning sign, they pre-informs us that there is a danger. So what should the road user do? They should prepare to start slowing down and start thinking of what to do to save his life and save other road users' life. Then the regulatory signs direct us what to do and what not to do. And because regulatory signs direct us what to do and what not to do, it also have two basic types of regulatory signs. One is prohibitory sign, and then the other one is mandatory sign. Prohibitory sign means what? Restrictional sign. What the driver was having the right to do, now that right has been taken away from him. He is now being restricted not to perform those acts on the road again. And that is what we call prohibitory sign. Then we talk of the mandatory sign. We said mandatory sign is from the word compulsory obligation to perform. So as a driver, there is always certain compulsory obligation that the driver must perform, and there are certain restrictions that the driver should not do. And those restrictions that the driver is not allowed to do, or those things that the driver is not allowed to do, is what we call prohibitory sign. Then the third one is what we call informatory sign. Informatory sign informs us the locations of places, cities, towns. That is what we mean by the informatory sign. Now the question may be asked, how do I identify these three types of road signs? These three basic types of road signs can be identified in three shapes, three ways. Identification, so let's look at I hope I can clean this one. Now we look at the identifications of road signs. Now let's look at how to identify the road signs, which we call identification. Identification of road signs. Road signs can be identified into three ways. One, we can identify the road signs by their shapes. Two, we can identify the road signs by their color. Three, we can identify the road signs by their names. These are the three basic ways that one can be able to use to identify the road signs. So we have designed three basic shapes. So even today, if we want to introduce a new road sign, then that new road sign will fall under these particular three shapes. The shapes of them, we talk of what? The triangular shape, the circular shape, and then the square or rectangular shape. And then the colors, we can talk of 6 primary colors. Even though in reality we have 3 basic primary colors. But when we come to the driving, we can also talk of what? 6 primary colors or 6 colors. And the colors here, we talk of the what? The red, yellow, green, blue, white, and black. These are the 6 colors that we use to communicate in driving. The red means what? Danger. Yellow can be represented as priority. Green is represented as what? The way may be clear, you may go. Blue means what? Mandatory. White represented the arrows of directions. And then the black represent the end of restrictions, or can also use as the symbols or the pictures, designs on the shapes. So, then we come to the names. We get the names through the pictures or symbols designed on the shapes. So that is how we get the names. My learners drivers, you should remember, you are not in to memorize somebody grammar of these road signs. You can get the derivations of the road signs, their names. And the derivations of the road signs, their names, we can get it through the pictures or the symbols or the diagrams designed in the shapes that we identify. So, now let's see. These are the various ways that we can use to identify the road signs. Now, the warning sign, how do I identify the warning sign? How do I identify the warning sign? How do I identify the warning sign? I can identify the warning sign by what? Red triangular shape. And how do I identify the regulatory sign? I can identify the regulatory sign by circular shape. With the regulatory sign, remember we said we have 2 basic types of regulatory sign. And one is what? Prohibitory, and then the other one is mandatory. With the prohibitory is red circle, which is prohibitory. And then the mandatory is what? Blue circle. So it means that we have 2 basic types of regulatory sign. With the regulatory sign, here we have the prohibitory, prohibitory, which is supposed to be a red, which is red circle. And then we have the mandatory, which is what most of them is what blue circle. Then we talk of informatory sign. How do I identify informatory sign? I can identify the informatory sign by square shape, by square or rectangular shape. And that color should be what? Either blue or green. These are the various ways that we can use to be able to identify the road signs. So I can identify the warning sign by triangular shape. But remember, not all triangular shapes are warning signs. Why did we say so? In case the color of the triangular shape changes, then the meaning also what changes. So, with the warning sign, it is not just any kind of triangular shape, but it's supposed to be what? Red triangular shape. If the triangular shape, the color changes to blue, then it becomes what? Mandatory. Now, we talk of regulatory sign. We said all regulatory signs supposed to be in a form of circular shape. And we identified two basic types of regulatory sign. One was prohibitory, and then the other is mandatory. With a prohibitory sign means that the driver or the road user is being restricted not to perform that obligation on the road. And then the mandatory means the driver is compulsory to perform certain obligation on the road. And we are saying that with a prohibitory sign, it is in a circle form, but not just any color of the circle form, but rather what? A red circular form. And then the mandatory is also in a form of what? Most of them supposed to be in a form of what? Blue circular shade. That is in Ghana. Then we talk of the informatory sign. We said the informatory sign informs us the locations of places, cities, towns, and they too can be identified in a form of what? Square or rectangular shape, and the color should be either blue or green, with the name of the places indicated with arrows or located or written in the square shape with arrows of direction. So that is a brief introduction of the road sign.